So tonight, we are bringing up John Roth, who his story is incredible. But not just that, he has a story that is so inspirational and motivational. To be the age that he is and to have walked the walk that he has with his family behind him and woven all through that, that is amazing. When I went to go prep with John, I was introduced to Olivia. Olivia, wave your hand. Yes. Olivia was there because she wanted to learn more about the ins and outs of what her dad does. And Olivia was filling out invoices. She was taking messages. She was greeting people, just like John was when he was younger. He is very well versed in what's happening in his company. And so for a guy who once claimed that he's not a businessman, his trajectory and perspective is now 20 and 30 years because of the innovative practices that they've taken up in their company. So you're going to hear a little bit about his background. He's going to sprinkle some philosophy because John loves leadership. So we're going to get the privilege of that. And then he's going to break some news for us, okay? Does that sound good? With that being said, please help me welcome John Roth. Thank you so much. All right, I think that atmosphere is set, isn't it?
I love it.
There we go. And I love these chairs, too.
Yeah, you sink in.
Man, they raised the bar for you, brother. Well, John, talk to us a little bit about what it was like growing up as a Rolph.
A wonderful experience. I got a lot of my family here tonight, my mom and my dad and my sister Rebecca and my wife Lauren and my daughters Olivia and Emma, who wanted me to make sure I said their names tonight. So Olivia
That's
and Emma.
Right.
And my in-laws, Pete and Deb Oakes and Austin Oakes are all here. And my Thrive Restaurant Group family is here also. So grateful that you all chose to come and have supported me. You know, you never become what you are alone. You're impacted positively or negatively by all those around you. And I was thinking coming here, I have a mentor that's been really meaningful to me for years, Marvin Martin, here as well. And between my family and my wife and Marvin, probably 80% of my world's paradigm has been formed through this table of people right here up front. And that's pretty neat to have them here. So it was great growing up as a Rolph. Sorry, I'll try and be more succinct in the future here. I won't give a thank you speech before every answer. But I grew up in just a wonderfully supportive family as a business grew kind of around us. And I was fortunate never to feel like second place to the business. My sister and I's development was always there. My dad coached our soccer team. But we were in and out of the restaurants a lot.
Talk about the restaurants. How did the restaurants even come about for your family?
So it goes back a half generation even before my father. His older brother, who was 11 and a half years older, Daryl, was one of the first Pizza Hut franchisees. I grew up in a small town in Minneapolis, Kansas. And to make a long story short, the third Pizza Hut franchisee was a classmate of his and had showed him the money he was making at a little pizza place in Hays, Kansas. And my uncle, who was teaching in Great Bend, thought maybe he should get in the pizza business. And so, you know, very entrepreneurially, they met with the Carneys, got east Iowa, drove into Minneapolis, talked to the banker and the lawyer and the doctor in town, raised some money, and went up and went to a campsite and used the campsite payphone as their office line while my uncle was the GC on the first Pizza Hut they built in Coralville, Iowa. And my dad can tell you how much this I get right or wrong later. Anyway, he eventually would go into business with my dad. We were Pizza Hut franchisees till 94, and they started Carl's Kelly's in 81. So my girls were just in the East Side homegrown with us, and I was telling them that when I was their age, we were building the first Carl's Kelly's in town, and I can still remember visiting that site with my father, and that I thought they'd probably start to remember some of these things as well. So it was always around us, but it was never the center of our lives. And the one thing I left my home knowing was that I was loved. And that's the greatest gift my parents ever gave me, is that I was able to move forward into the world knowing that I was accepted and loved. So I thank them for that.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness. Love a family. So you all started, again, Pizza Hut was a really big deal for you all. You all didn't just take on one. Eventually they grew. Talk about that growth trajectory.
Yeah, so my uncle built out Eastern Iowa. My mom and dad actually met working in some of those Pizza Huts in Iowa. Then my uncle tossed in when Pizza Hut went public and became the national director of operations over time. And so that's why we're in Wichita now. And when he left Pizza Hut, my dad was area director of San Francisco. That's where my mom and him got married. I think it was an official ceremony. It was at a courthouse.
They're shaking their head, yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so it's been interesting because we've gotten to see the arc of fast food and quick service with Pizza Hut in the industry. And then we got early into casual dining with Carlos O'Kelly's.
How'd you make the jump from pizza to Mexican food, though, Carlos O'Kelly's?
Well, it was out of failure in many ways. Not mine. It was all my dad's failure. No, I'm just kidding. I'll tell his story.
He's going to take the mic from you.
No, but we had helped Pizza Hut develop a concept called Applegate's Landing, and they felt like all the Pizza Hut guys were making their money and spending it in other places. They wanted them to spend it in growth vehicles that they'd create. Well, when PepsiCo bought Pizza Hut, they said focus on pizza, and so we had 2 orphaned Applegate's Landings up in Iowa, and with those needing to be disposed off or sold, our manager of one of those restaurants had grown up on an Apache Indian reservation in Arizona and learned to cook there. And so they got together and said, well, let's try and put together a Mexican concept. The only other one out there is Chi-Chi's.
Mm-hmm. Who remembers Chi-Chi's?
Yeah.
Yes!
Great margaritas. Not around anymore, but they were great in their time. But anyway, so they got together and worked out recipes and put it together, just having that bent to believe that they could create and put something together. And it worked. And so they opened the first one, then converted the next one, got it right, and then brought it home here in 1987. And we've been growing ever since.
You know, you say that we've been growing ever since. Some companies can't figure out how to start. There's some people probably in this room who have an idea for a business or a food concept. They're cooking, at home. Taste this, but they don't know how to bring it to market. You guys made it grow. What was the magic?
There's a lot that is luck, and we talk about that. It's being fortunate. There's times about being in the right place at the right time. So we got into Pizza Hut early. That was the right place, the right time to be able to meet someone and know that. We got into casual dining right before it had a huge growth. And, when you're around business enough, you look around and know that there's some bad industries that make smart people look really dumb, and there's some really good industries that make dumb people look really smart. Yeah. As you can't always gauge it on what the sales numbers are telling you as far as how they're doing. But to bring something to life, I think one takes commitment, hard work, helps a lot if you're well capitalized, and if you can have the humility to fail fast and learn. And to sit there and say, okay, how can we get better? How can we get better every day? And to listen to the marketplace, right. Because ultimately that's who you're trying to serve. The wrong reason to get into the restaurant business is if you have a great spaghetti and you love cooking it for your friends, so you think you'd love cooking it for everybody. You see a lot of people say, oh, that'd be fun. And most of the time that doesn't work out too well. But having a passion for people and having a passion for food and being able to do that consistently is really important.
So you say that it was always love. You all didn't come second to the business, but you were in the business. You visited, you had conversations. So you knew right away when you were younger you were going to be a businessman, right? Is that why you went to D.C.?
It was funny. I actually never worked in the restaurants growing up, though I was in them a lot. I mean, the closest was our Lawrence Carlos opening. I ran the front selling T-shirts. We sold a lot of T-shirts that opening. Having a 10-year-old up there is hard to say no to, but I can remember when I was sick, my mom maybe was out of town. I can remember having to go to a food tasting, and my wife and I will stop at restaurants sometimes when we're on the road, and our kids will be running around on a closed section of the restaurant. And I can remember doing things like that, but I just never thought that was who I was. I never had an interest. I fell in love with film in high school, and the people that knew me then, and there's some in the room that do, there was nothing that was going to stop me from making movies. And so I went to Baylor University knowing I was going to study film. Even when I can remember a conversation I had with my dad walking into a WSU basketball game, and he was like, hey, I don't know, man. I don't know if Hollywood people are your kind of people, if you'd really like being out there. And I'm sitting there thinking the whole time he's talking, this is going to be perfect for my Oscar speech. Like I remember when he told me not to go, and here I am, and we made this movie. But the thing that moved me inside of movies wanting to do that was just a desire to impact society positively. Mm-hmm. And we've always done that through story. We know who we are through story, and I wanted to tell a story. And so I went all the way through, didn't take a single business course in all of college, and went and spent a year out in Washington, D.C. And it was during that year I started to realize how unique it was, the friendship I had with my father. Mm-hmm. So I was still planning to go to Hollywood, but I thought I'd stop for 6 months and just be friends with my dad and learn some business and then head out to L.A. because I just knew I probably would never have a window like it again. And he was kind enough to say yes and let me live in his basement, every parent's dream, right, to have their kid come back and live in their basement.
On their way to Hollywood.
But they started me as yes, right. They started me as a backline prep cook out west. Kelly Taylor's here, who helped train me back then 16 and a half years ago. And I was, probably as much a help as I wasn't. I can remember spilling salsa and grease and breaking plates and all the things that, talented guys like me do.
But can you pause right there for
Yes.
just a second? Did you feel any kind of way about having to go and work in the back when you just wanted to hang out with your dad and learn the front maybe?
Well, it was interesting. So one of the things that was just drilled in because, my mom and dad operated restaurants. The two of them would run a Pizza Hut together. And so there was always a tremendous respect for the people that worked in the restaurants. And I just always knew growing up, and my sister, I think, knew this too, that every opportunity we had in life was because of the hard work the people in the restaurants were doing. Mm-hmm. And there's just a genuine appreciation that was talked about at home that I saw my mom and dad express when they were in the restaurants. So when I came back and I was working back in those kitchens, I didn't feel like, why am I back here? I was like, well, I get to work alongside the people that have given me the opportunities in life that I've had. And they actually had nicknamed me Spoon before I ever came in to work there because they thought I was the owner's kid born with a silver spoon in his mouth or somewhere. And they liked me enough by the time I left to tell me that that had been my nickname. And so it still kind of sticks around a little bit today in the right circles. But it was great. And, fortunately, I was also taught work ethic Absolutely. And the value of that. So, going in and working hard was fun for me.
Absolutely. Can you talk about some of the lessons learning the business from your dad? How did you all continue to team and work together, father, son, and business, and knowing, again, that might not have been your ultimate stop? How did you all manage all of those dynamics?
Well, we'd seen a lot of father, sons, and family units lose the relationship in order to protect the business, in the sense that they'd get in a fight and they end up not talking to each other, and one would end up with the business, or the business would end up being sold or failing. And we had this model of my uncle and father had been able to navigate the territory, both being brothers and business right. partners for decades before. But one of the things I'd learned out in Washington, D.C. was a lot about reconciliation. It was a big part of the work we did. And one of the tools inside of that was taught to us was this idea of keeping short accounts, which means that a lot of relationships don't fall apart because of one big act. Usually they fall apart because of a lot of little things add up that don't go spoken or resolved. And so we made a promise to each other when I started working there that we would keep short accounts, which was really awkward at first, because what we tell ourselves is, well, my feelings shouldn't be hurt for not being invited to that meeting, or he really didn't mean it that way or this, and you tuck it down and you move on, and then it happens 2 or 3 times and it becomes a bigger deal. Right. And the emotion around it can actually even surprise you. And so, going to my dad and saying, hey, I got to tell you, that hurt my feelings when you did that. You kind of feel a little weird having that conversation, but when you practice it more, and it's really become a part of what we do, and we've had some of those conversations have gone really easy, and some that have gone hard, and some have been during the business day, and some that have been at 10:30 at night. But we've always chosen to stay in, and when you can have that trust in each other,
That's right.
that we'll work it out, and this relationship's more important than the business, then we've been able to see our restaurant or our relationship flourish over the years. And it's just so special to me even now to have had this window and time in my life to share with my family like this.
Absolutely. How many of you all are going to adopt that short account practice? That's real. That's real. We talk about culture so often as it relates to building a team. You all had a culture of your family being able to run and own the businesses and grow them. But talk about some of the tenets you all really did embed within the culture of your employees and your staff.
Well, culture wasn't something that I think my dad and uncle specifically spoke to a lot. And sometimes you can talk about it and it's not real because it's not lived out.
Right.
The culture that's been inside of SASNAC and now Thrive Restaurant Group came apart really because of who they were over time, right? Our culture dealt a lot with respect, respecting people for being truth tellers, respecting people for working hard, and treating people that way, and being consistent over time. And I got to walk in to the good graces. It was one of those things I realized that part of my inheritance in life was the good name and the work that they'd done over time, being who they are. And valuing smart business decisions, not being wild west, and making just good financial decisions over time, and having a good risk tolerance. And so that built up as people saw how we treated and how we celebrated things and how we liked to have fun. Neither my dad nor my uncle took themselves too seriously. And so that humor has been interjected too. And so it's been easy for me to come in, adopt that, because that's the family and the culture I was raised in. Yeah. And then to sit there and say, okay, well, how's that transform into the future and where we're going? And that's what you saw in the newspaper today, where we're talking about Thrive Restaurant Group and where we're going. It's all built on that foundation that they've spent decades laying. It's not something that's new today.
That's wonderful. Well, in order to get to Thrive, though, you were still working in that 6-month time of hanging out with your dad, learning the business on your way somewhere else. What happened after those 6 months, John?
Well, so after 6 months, I realized I still had a lot to learn. It's amazing I couldn't figure out the whole business in 6 months. And so we said, well, let's go for another 6 months, then I'll go out to Hollywood. And after a year, it's like, look, I was a kid. I grew up here. I always loved Wichita. I wasn't one of the guys like, I can't wait to get out of here. And so I was having a lot of fun being back. I was having a lot of fun being in the business. I was enjoying the relationships. And so decided to stay indefinitely. And then I met this really pretty girl from Wichita, which made it easier to stay too. And that is Lauren. Anyway, and so we were kind of just going on. And again, I didn't have an ambition to take over the business. I still thought I'd go do something else. And about 7 or 8 years in, no one said anything to me, but I started to realize that having the heir apparent in the business, not committed to it long term, was starting to create some cognitive dissonance for people. Should I stay here? What's the future going to be? Are they going to sell it? Are you committed? Are you not? Right. And so on my own accord, I knew I needed to make a decision whether I was in or out. Like, is this what I wanted to do with my life? Because I knew if I wanted to be in, it needed to be a long-term commitment. And so I actually made the decision to leave. And I just knew I wasn't a business guy. I'd never been curious about it a whole lot growing up. I didn't study it in college. I wasn't like my friends who wanted to know how every business made money. And at that time, I actually thought I was a politics guy. And that was the way I thought about it. And so I went to my dad and I said, Dad, one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. We were in the parking lot at Jabara Airport. I can remember like yesterday. And I said, I'm done. And it was a heartbreaking conversation for both of us. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I didn't have something else lined up, but I know I need to make this decision first. And so over the next several months, I really wrestled with what I should do. And so Lauren and I went to a close group of friends. There's about 9 people that we knew loved us and cared about us, people our own age, people older. Marvin was one of those people. And said, okay, hey, am I a business guy or am I a politics guy? What should I do? Politics guy, politics guy, politics guy, politics guy, politics guy. Okay, great. We know. We need to run. Let's figure out something to run for. And so I was actually, I don't even know if the Thrive folks know this whole story. I was driving home over lunch hour to call a realtor with Lauren to move into the district of the office I was going to run for. And I got a call. We'd gone through everybody, called everybody a second time. There was only one guy I hadn't gotten a hold of for the second time. Everybody was 100% agreement this is what I should do. And he calls. I'm going through the drive-through line at City Bites over there, and we live in Bel Air at the time. And he goes, John, I think you're going to regret leaving. I'm like, oh, Marty, why couldn't you call earlier? Gee, man, Christmas. But what he said to me and has stuck with me ever since, he goes, look, you're asking the wrong question. It's not about are you a business guy or a politics guy. He goes, you're a leader. The question is, where should you be leading right now? And you'll regret passing this opportunity up later in life. I mean, as soon as he said it, I knew he was right.
Wow.
And so I pulled up at home, and Lauren, taken her a while to get gigged up for the idea of running for something, because that's not her cup of tea. And I go, honey, I know we're set up to call, but we got to go back and revisit this conversation with everybody, because the question's wrong. And so we went back to the exact same group of people and said, okay, if I ask the question, I'm a leader, should I be leading in business or politics right now? Where should I be leading? Business, business, business. With full unanimity, consensus. We heard from everybody in that way, and so we took a hard look in the mirror, and I still, for a couple more months, thought about it and prayed about it. Went on a prayer retreat for a week in North Carolina, and came back and just really felt a strong calling that this was my path in life. And so I walked in my dad's office about 6 months after we'd had the original conversation and said, Dad, hey, I'm not jerking you around. This is exactly how I said it. I know he can remember it. Not only do I want to stay, but I'm ready to take it over, and I have a vision for it. Can we create a 2-year plan?
Wow.
And he goes, let's go talk to Daryl. And so we went in. I talked with them. He said, great, come up with a plan. I started engaging the team in a plan. We all realized it needed to happen faster than 2 years. And 40 days after that conversation, I was running Sasnac and Carlos O'Kelly's. It just happened really fast. But when you know it's right and you can make the long-term commitment,
right.
You think about things different and you throw yourself into it. And it's important in life. Sorry, I'm kind of going on here, but it's important. It's been, I can't tell you how helpful it is when you go into a major decision like that with people behind you. We do it in marriage where we ask people to stand up there with us and make that commitment to go through it with us. I was able to step into this next part of the journey, which was now over 8 years ago, and say, hey, this is where I'm going, and this is long term, and we got people that believe in us, that are cheering us on, they're going to help us remember that this is. I had lunch with Marvin today, and we were talking, I was like, man, I am so glad we made the choice we did. I just can't even tell you, and it's been a blessing, and I'm so excited about the future and where it leads.
I appreciate you saying that. I'm going to take a moment because this is interactive as well. And we just came through a season of reflection with the holidays and the New Year's. Everyone's making New Year's resolutions. Hopefully they're still intact. We haven't made January 15th. Hopefully they're still intact. But I listen to people throughout Wichita in the entrepreneurship community, and they talk about, I have this vision, but I don't know necessarily if I'm the right person for it. I see where it could be. I need a whole team behind me, but for me, they prop me up, but for me, I just don't know. You being able to talk about, again, that advice that was given to you, where do you see yourself leading? Where do you see? I think we need to give ourselves permission to ask ourselves that as well, and take that confidence in terms of our leadership, because we all have that. So I appreciate how you worded that very much.
Well, I'll tell you, you'll find out in life that we think it's about finding the right answers. I'll tell you, most of life is finding the right questions. And that has been true for me over and over and over again. That was all about finding the right question.
Absolutely. So you have this big vision now of where you can take the company and some of the growth initiatives. Talk about a few of those for me, please.
Yeah, well, so it wasn't easy. There's usually a question about failure in this. I'll just skip ahead. One of the first things we had to do was work out some issues inside the Carlos O'Kelly's brand. And I knew that when I stepped into the role that there was going to be some hard things first. I didn't realize they were going to be as hard as they were. And we had a brand that had experienced tremendous success in the 90s and early 2000s, like most of casual dining. And we had these 20-year-old, 18-year-old units that the towns had moved away from. And they were slowing us down from being able to dream about what the next chapter of Carlos O'Kelly's was going to be about. And I can remember going and visiting a restaurant that we knew we wouldn't renew the lease on 2 years later. The carpet was torn up, and I was like, man, if this was in Wichita, I'd be embarrassed.
Wow.
This isn't good for the people working in here. It's not good for us. And so we made the decision together, again in unity, that we needed to make some hard decisions. And so there was, in the beginning of, I think it was 2014, we shut down 17 restaurants in one day. 750 people lost their jobs. It was awful. way harder on other people than it was even for me. But we knew we had to take that bold step to be able to set ourselves up for the kind of things that we're doing right now. And fortunately, the people inside of Carlos Kelly's, and there's several of them here, I was able to trade in that moment on the relational capital that my dad and uncle built as trustworthy people. So when we communicated openly about what was going to happen and how it was going to go down, they knew they could trust us. And outside of one assistant general manager, we were able to keep everybody we wanted to keep inside of that. 24 people moved around the country to stay with our company, and we were going. But I'll tell you, going into that, I stayed awake some nights sitting there going, I'm going to be the kid who moved back and destroyed the family business. That's going to be my story. And can I get comfortable with that? I thought I'd have this scarlet letter around my neck the rest of my life, and it was a great moment for me to be able to let go of the idea of that I needed other people to think I was successful. If you study the Enneagram at all, there's 9 personality types. I'm a number 3, which is a performer, which means I care what other people think about me. I had someone say, you really like to be pet like a dog, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I do. So you can imagine how hard a decision like that is for someone with my personality type to know, well, this is going to make me, and we get through it, and I get the call from Carrie Rangers at like 5:15 after we just shut down all those restaurants. I was like, oh man, who called her? But it's going to be on the front page of the paper next day, and it's a hard interview to give too. But you try and keep the long game in mind, and you try and do the best thing for the most number of people. And if you can do that, it can give you the courage in those moments. And if you can know who you are and who you want to become, it can help guide you in how you treat people and how you hold yourself in times like that. And that had been real helpful for our organization. But we had to walk through that to get to where we are today, which is a real exciting time inside our company.
So talk about the excitement.
A lot of great things going on. I think a lot of you saw we changed the name of SASNAC officially to Thrive Restaurant Group, SASNAC being Kansas backwards. How many people did not know that before seeing the article at SASNAC? You can admit it. It's all right. It's usually about 50-50 when you talk to people. And it's true what I said in the story. My dad, I've heard him say 100 times. That sounds like the name of a vending machine company. He also says it's the only company I let my brother name. But it means something. The people that we've been able to help inside this community and the philanthropic work we've done, I know it means something to those groups. I know it means something to the people here that have been with our company 25, 30 years that are sitting over there. And it means something to me. But the idea is we were out growing, and we knew we needed to figure out how to talk about ourselves. And we'd spend a lot of time the last 2 or 3 years saying, look, businesses come and go. Yeah. Concepts come and go. What lasts is people, and we have a mindset that we talk about in our company called people are a legacy, just to remind us that in the end, what is going to matter is going to be the lives that we touch. We've seen it over and over again at retirement parties. When someone's leaving, they're not talking about the growth in the second quarter of 2015. Yeah. They're talking about who they got to work with, the people they got to help, and the things they got to do. It's what matters. And so we talk about, well, how are we helping people? What are we really doing? We have a long way to go on this journey. But it's really about the human spirit thriving and flourishing. In the businesses where humans are thriving and flourishing, where they're connected to their gifts, to their contribution, where they know that they're making a difference, where they're feeling like they have an opportunity to master their skills and further their life, the businesses thrive around that. And so we decided to focus our energy on that. So our name is Thrive Restaurant Group, and we ditched a mission and purpose statement that we've had for a while, and we decided to go with what we're calling an invitation. Because when you hire someone into your company, that's really what you're doing. You're inviting them into something. When we were going to these 16 management teams that came into our company this last year, we were inviting them into something. And the invitation's simple. It's to make a difference. Come be a part of what we're doing, and we'll give you an opportunity to make a difference. And we're a shift-by-shift company. And so really, every shift, you have an opportunity and a choice. Did I make a difference today? Are the people better today because I was here? And we believe that this world is largely in decay everywhere you look. When I look at pictures of myself 10 years ago, I can tell, right? When I look at the maintenance budget on our buildings, I know. But our opportunity is to come in and be the exception to this world, which is to bring more life, more love, more joy, more peace any opportunity that we get. And it's lived out in our brands differently. Inside of Homegrown, we use cultivate kindness is what we talk about. And we invite our teams in, help us cultivate kindness. We want to know what that's like, bring it to life. It can't be a program, right? And the team over there took that bull by the horns on their own accord, pitched in their own money, and put homeless packs together and went downtown and handed stuff out to the homeless before the holidays, just because they felt empowered by that mission. And Carlos O'Kelly's, it's about sharing generosity. Inside of our Applebee's brands, it's about being a good neighbor. All this talking about that comes back to making a difference and the thriving spirit. And then the world's open to us, right? If that's where we're focused, maybe it's Applebee's right now, maybe it's something new in the future. But this is when you can know who you are and who you want to become. That is a power position to be able to move out of. And you have a lot of opportunities that come your way when you can have those boundaries and those ideas and those aspirations and the unity that can come around a clear message like that. And if there's anything we're feeling at our office right now, I think it's unity and hopefulness. And Carrie in that story asked me, she goes, what's coming in 2019? And it's funny, things have been moving so fast. It's like, I don't know, we got 2 homegrowns under construction. We got another concept we're going to launch this year, but we're kind of hands open right now to see what comes our way.
You want to talk about the technology?
Yeah, so that's the breaking news. And we
we're going to break it.
Yeah, breaking news. Beep, 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 boop, boo. So this is a great Wichita story, I think, and if we can be successful, it'll be an even better one. But just even the idea that we're trying this, I think, is great for Wichita. So you got a lot of folks from High Touch over here. Just a wonderful, great Wichita company. It's been around for decades in the IT business. They're the largest point-of-sale provider in the rent-to-own space. And we're in the restaurant business. And we have a Mexican chain that needs a new point of sale. And this is a few years ago. And so to upgrade that point of sale, it was going to cost us $180,000, and the new version wasn't going to be that much better, and it was going to be on old code. And so we started to think about, well, I wonder if we could write something. And so we started looking in the restaurant space if there was a solution that was cloud-based and written in modern code, and something that didn't try and pull every penny from the restaurateur, but wanted to see the restaurateur be successful. And Wayne and I both are engaged civically, and we developed a great friendship. And Wayne really has been another mentor to me, a guy that I could go to and say, hey, Wayne, you've been there before. Help me think through this. Yeah. And so we were having a lunch at Carlos O'Kelly's over margaritas. Great ideas come over margaritas and chips and salsa. I'm here to testify. I said, Wayne, do you think we could partner on writing a point of sale for the restaurant industry? And we talked a little bit about it, and he jumped right on it. And so 2 Wichita companies, one that knows the restaurant business, one that knows the technology business, formed a 50-50 joint venture that we're calling Nigel, that we're going to launch into the restaurant space this March. Yeah. So it's a new IT venture for this community, something that has, really is something that could be sold worldwide. And we're off to a great start. It's fun. It's amazing how fast you can move. Their company has a great culture, and we've worked really well together. There's been a high degree of trust. But we launched this product into the Homegrown opening, which was a pretty courageous move. And I got to make the decision to do that. My friend Brian over there and others got to live with the consequences of that decision. But we launched a concept that no one had ever done before in Homegrown with a technology as its spine that no one had ever done before. And Iris and Greg and others we had 3 or 4 coders in the restaurant. That's not normal, a restaurant opening. Fixing stuff as it happened, and then another group at High Touch, they were up like 72 hours straight, but we're in the marketplace. It's being tested out in our Carlos O'Kelly's and Homegrown, and we've just started selling to some local people here, and we're really excited about what it can be. Everybody we've talked to the leaders in the industry around us that evaluate these point of sales, they're telling us that we are headed on the exact right track and to expect good things. And we hope to expect good things for Wichita and for our 2 companies. So I appreciate High Touch and all the work you guys have done on this.
Very, very well done. Very well done. So I have to at some point share the mic because I'm sure there's tons of questions, but there's just 2 other areas that I wanted to touch first. And that is, you have so much going on, John, just so much going on. People talk about balance, but you talk about rhythms. What does rhythms have to do with what all you have going on?
Yeah, some people might think I'm on a kamikaze mission, but I got 5 kids at home. These are my oldest 2 up front at 9 and 8 years old. We had a 6 and 4-year-old that were in tears that they couldn't come tonight. I told them that Wave said you had to be in 2nd grade or older to come. It was very disappointing for them. And then a 2-year-old. And so we have these 2 girls.
We've got a violator back there.
That's right. Andler. That's Nick Andler, Station 10 Studios, who builds all our tables at Homegrown. Great partner.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so, it's a busy home life. I've got a wonderful and understanding wife, and we have 2 very supportive families. We would not be able to do what we do if both our families were not in town helping us out. But we chased balance for a while, and I think what we found out was that balance, you kind of go crazy trying to achieve that. What we talk a lot about is boundaries and rhythm. And so what are the boundaries we're going to set up in life? What are the lines we shouldn't cross? Or if they're going to be crossed, we need to talk about it first. How much am I going to be gone? And what are going to be the warning signs? And we invite other people that are close to our life to say, tell us if you see the warning signs. Tell me if you see I'm gone too much or you're seeing strain at home. The most important thing and the biggest impact I'll have on this world is through the 5 kids that we're raising. Not through the business, not through anything else that we're doing. And so how do I keep that a priority? But at the same time, man, there's tons of opportunity at work, and I got this team that's ready to run and ready to sprint. And so how do we take on the challenges that we have? And so there's times where it's like, next week I'm going to be gone a whole bunch out at Applebee's headquarters working on some stuff. And I'll be gone. But then how do I not balance, but how do I find a rhythm where I'm back home a little bit more? And what are those rhythms like? And when do we know if the rhythm's out of balance? And so you try and feel that and communicate through that, but know that it changes. And then what are the healthy rhythms in life? And I tell you, I'll stand up right now and say, don't follow my example yet. I have not been great about it. And this year I'm really trying to take some steps where we're talking about boundaries and rhythms and self-care. And things like that you have to do. If the leader of an organization isn't taking care of themselves, you can't expect other people to. If we want to see people thrive, the leader needs to make the choices for themselves to thrive and for their family and such. And so it's just a constant discussion, and then there has to be a lot of grace involved, which I'm very fortunate there's a lot of grace in our house, including my daughter's middle name, Emma Grace. So we have it constantly.
There you go.
Anyway.
That's awesome. John, do you mind sharing how old are you?
I'm 39, 40 in May.
40 in May. Woo! How many of us in the room are still under 40? Sorry, those over. But raise your hand, seriously. Raise your hand, under 40s. Living the dream, somebody said, right? I say this because there is a charge upon many of us to take the baton up and run the race for Wichita. When we think about the opportunity that's ahead for our city, and we think about the business community and all of the energy around startup culture and networking and events like this, but it takes the people to do it. Talk about Wichita for you. What is the opportunity you see for Wichita? And I'm going to tag team this one on it, your role in helping Wichita achieve that opportunity.
I think the invitation for this city right now is to believe in itself. And I think that's been the invitation for us for about 2 or 3 years. It's been easy and kosher for a long time to talk down on ourselves, to not have positive expectations for ourselves, and to accept status quo or something that may be even a little better than status quo as adequate. But the truth is, no one from outside this community is going to come help this community thrive. It's not leaders in Washington, D.C. It's not leaders in Topeka. It's not people that used to live here. It's us right here in this room. It's our community, our family, Republicans, Democrats, older, youngers, of all types and places that have to come together and say, hey, I'll do my part, whatever it is, to invest back in this community. And you only invest in something that you believe in and that you believe has an outcome. And we see it over and over again. Cities that are further behind than us that have believed in themselves, that have moved ahead. Cities that were ahead of us that stopped believing in themselves, that moved behind. And you can feel you can feel the momentum. There's an opportunity out there for us right now that if we can continue to believe and make the choices necessary to invest in our community and make it the kind of place that we want to live, that we want our kids to live in, that we want to pass on, to know that when we had the stage and when we had the baton, we were courageous.
Right.
And we believed, and we made big decisions. And so I feel like that's the invitation, and that's, when I try and throw my shoulder in to the community, that's really what I choose to do. My heart is for the poor. That's where I saw my mom and dad give a lot of their time and attention. And I started on the board of the Wichita Children's Home when I first moved back 16 years ago. And one of the things I realized is to care for the poor, one of the best ways that we can do that is to have a thriving economy and to create more opportunity for more people. And I realized in my seat in business, one of the ways that I can do that is by trying to help. And that's when I started directing more of my attention to the Chamber of Visionary in Wichita and now the partnership. That if we can create a dynamic place with opportunity for people, we can do some real intentional and great things together. And we just have some real hard work. Look, there's some, we've got momentum. Things aren't great yet. But we can get them there. And so I just try and do my part and the opportunities that come my way to do it. And I think that's, if people will think and listen to what they're passionate about and the things they care about and be willing to give a little bit of their time and energy and sometimes financial resources, just amazing things happen. And then we start inspiring each other, and that's what you're starting to feel in this community. We talk about inside our company. It's called the Inspire, Be Inspired wheel. And we believe that when you see someone rise above or work hard or put in the effort, that makes you want to put in the effort. I got to tell you, there's times I come home and I tell Lauren, maybe I should just be a teacher. Man, I am exhausted. Or I could probably just be as happy running one restaurant as 61 right now. And then I go to work and I see the work that other people are doing. I'm like, no, I can do this. Yeah. We can do it for each other. And the community's the same way, where we can do it for each other. And if we can look across and not judge and not tear each other down, but trust our neighbor and try and bring out some of the unusual voices and help people stand up, we can do some amazing things together. And that's my hope and dream for Wichita, Kansas.
On that note, my final question is going to be this to you, and then I will share reluctantly. I've been chasing John for a meeting for like months. And so when this came out, I said, Jacob, please let me do this. Because you are an inspiration. I watch you. Tell us, and this will be my final question, tell us what you've learned about yourself from your grind.
What I've learned about myself from my grind over the last few years is relationships are paramount. You heard me speak to that earlier. We can get lost chasing the what. We're asked from the beginning, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? What are you doing? It's when you meet someone on the airplane, it's usually a second question you ask them after, what's your name? What do you do? And we find our value in that and the producing. And I'll tell you, I watch it in other people and I see it. The way Marvin always used to talk about it is the old farmer who said, I don't want all the land, I just want the land that's contiguous to ours. And there's always more to go after and go get, and there's always ways to chase yourself and be harder, and you can just lose everything chasing that. And really in the end, I think you realize that it's a chasing of the wind. And so while we're doing that work, how do we think about who we're becoming and who we want to be, and are we becoming that person? So for me, I want to become more a person of love. I want to understand what that means, more sacrifice. I want to be a person of reconciliation. I want to be a person that promotes unity. I want to be a person that when I come in the room, the amount of grace goes up, it doesn't go down, right? And so I articulate that to friends that I meet with on a weekly basis, and they help me think, am I still becoming that person, or am I giving that up? Because it's so easy to forget. If I didn't put checks in there, the grind would have eaten me alive. And I've seen it do it to other people, where this community, under no fault, they'll take as much as you'll give it. Your business will take as much as you'll give it. And if you don't think about boundaries and you don't keep an eye on who am I becoming through this process, because in the end, I got to tell you, it's all that matters. What you built and what you did, whether it's a success or failure, doesn't matter as much as the condition of your heart when it's done. And that's what I've learned in this. is that there's nothing of more value than the condition of my heart right now, because it impacts in the present moment what kind of father I am to my girls, how I feel about myself, and all that. And if I can protect that, I know this is a little squishy and touchy-feely, but if I can protect that in the end, and I'm in the old folks' home, I'm going to be a joyful person, not a bitter person.
That's not soft skills, that's success skills. Thank you. Well, put your hands together for my stretch goal. John Roth. We'll open it up now for questions.
I am not a wireless mic, so if you have a question, you're going to have to make your way all the way up here to ask your question to John. So who's going to be brave enough to ask the first question? Really? There we go.
Yes.
What would you say in general was the hardest thing you've done in your life?
There's been a few things that have taken a lot of courage. It took a lot of courage to be willing to have that conversation with my dad, that I was planning to leave. That was hard. It took a lot of courage to be vulnerable to ask that. I'll tell you that one of the hardest things that I've been through was having to close those restaurants. It was just hard to face the facts and to know that what the consequences of that were going to be. But that's where you start to become and really figure out who you are. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about this company and the great people that I get a chance to work with every day, that we're caring humans. We care about other humans. And even when you got to make hard decisions, you can be a caring person.
Yeah.
Oh, don't be shy, everybody. I know lots of questions.
Oh.
Shout it out, Jennifer. Shout it out.
It's a great question. So,
You want to repeat it? In case
okay, the question to repeat, what's the plan in 2019 for growth and expansion? And it's a good question. It's funny, usually you figure that stuff out like in October, November, December. We had such a fast-moving year. We're just actually starting to think about it. We got a lot in the pipe already, right? So Homegrown East will open in March in Bradley Fair. We're really excited about that. Homegrown Downtown will either open at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, depending on how fast they get the building built over there, Hutton. Counting on you. So we got Homegrown, which is a brand we launched 2 years ago that's given us the confidence that we can launch other brands. And we've been incubating another concept that we'll launch into Wichita this year that we're really excited about. And it's complementary to Homegrown, but it stands on its own. And whether we can find the right space or we need to buy a food truck, it'll go into Wichita this year one way or another. So we'll launch another concept this year. We're all open always to buying other Applebee's franchises, so we look at those anytime that those come up. Then we expect big things out of Nigel this year. There's just a lot of opportunity inside of that space where people are evaluating, do I want to be with these huge companies that don't care about me, that are on old code, or do I want somewhere where I'm cared for and it sets me up to succeed in my business? And we see just a big itch and area for us to move into that. And so I'm excited about what the steps are there. So I think between Nigel and Homegrown and the new concept, we got our hands full. But you also need to take time. And I was talking to our CFO, Greg, about this earlier today. When you have spaces to breathe and you feel that rhythm, we need to get better at the things we do every day. So you need to take some time right now. How can we do the things that we're already doing better? And so if if this year's not as fast as last year, we'll just make sure we got better in other ways, and trust that was the rhythm for this year.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
What's your favorite restaurant?
Olivia's Cafe. You won't believe this, but my kids play restaurant at home, and I'm really able to coach them well on how to do it right.
Great question.
What's my favorite restaurant? It's boy, I got stumped by an 8-year-old. This is great. Toughest question all night. there's a special connection for me, Carlos Kelly's, having grown up and been around that, and that's being so much of our family's DNA. But having been a closer part of developing Homegrown and getting to do it, Lauren was a big part of that. She did the interior design with Rebecca Gates back there from SPT. They did a heck of a job. It's been a lot of fun being in there. So I got to tell you, it's a tie between Homegrown and Carlos O'Kelly's, or an Applebee's in Iowa, South Dakota, Kentucky, or Tennessee.
All right. We had a brave soul that walked up here for a question.
I work at Wichita State in the Office of Admissions. Is there anything that Wichita State can do to help Thrive be successful?
Nice.
Well, I appreciate that question, and Wichita State does so much for this community. I've gotten a chance to work along Mark Torline in particular recently. I know he's here tonight at the partnership. But we rely on Wichita State to help provide a lot of our next generation of workers. We have some folks that work for us that are students of yours. And so and you guys do a good job of this, but of understanding what the marketplace needs, where it needs to go, helping produce leaders along with people that are educated. And I think we need to have a shift too. We have a lot of focus on aviation in this community, and we need to. It's a stalwart, and we want to see it continue to grow. But I think we can even try to figure out how we start to create the tech worker pipeline, because there's a lot of tech, and I know there's other people in this community, in this room that aren't just us, that are going to need to be hiring. And I think we'll see some real needs in this community in the future. So I'd love to see Wichita State continue to produce that. But if you guys continue, if you can think about the content and the character of your graduates, along with what you're teaching them, I think you're going to be doing this community another solid. So thank you guys for what you do.
Absolutely.
Another question.
What would be your favorite book on personal growth?
Well, I give a lot of different books away, and it kind of depends on what your traction is. I really like a lot of the reflective books that take you in. I'm reading actually a book right now called Understanding Fear in Yourself and Others. It's from the 1950s, and it's an incredible book at helping understand myself. But some of the real formative books for me, there's a book by a guy that had given up everything that he had going and went and lived with special needs folks. And it's called From Brokenness to Community. It's a small little pamphlet. It's hard to get, and that has spoken to me a lot, to understand all of our own brokenness and the way that a human spirit thrives and flourishes inside a community. That's meant a lot to me to know kind of in that question of who I want to become. Books like that have helped me a lot.
I assume you're familiar with the book Traction.
Yes, I am.
Is that something you've adopted, or is there a management style that you would recommend or that you've kind of embraced in your company?
It's a great question. So Ashley over here is a great traction person if you want to talk to anybody about traction. We had a book called Scaling Up that I actually got from my father-in-law, and Traction, and another one that we played with, the 7 Disciplines of Execution. I can't remember if that's the right title, something like that. We've looked at all this. We're still trying to figure out what's it mean for us as we want to move fast and be nimble, and what that looks like for us. And so we don't have a great articulated style or anything that we'd probably hold up right now. But one of the things we've really tried to embrace, you heard me say it earlier, is fail fast and learn. And so we're actually playing with that right now. I do think knowing what the goals you want, the tenets inside of a book like Traction are good. And generally, we're probably not doing what people tell you should do, which is pick one and stick with it. They're all good in their own way. And we might be giving that advice a year from now. But I'll just tell you this, when you pick your methodology on that, I think it's important as a management team to sit down and talk about your how inside of also that what you're trying to accomplish in that methodology is, are we going to be caring? Are we going to try and tell each other the truth? Are we going to seek unity? Are we going to hold grudges? And those type of things through that process, whichever process you go through, I think is really important to lay out on the front end.
Hi there. So earlier you said something that kind of resonated with me, that what you're leaving behind in this world is more your children and what they put into the world as opposed to your business. And that's one thing I've noticed. I have small kids, and it seems like you really started, well, I mean, you were well into the business when you had small kids. So do you have any suggestions as far as how to make the most of the time that you do have set aside with your family, and how to kind of turn your entrepreneurship and your business brain off? Because that's something I'm trying to figure out.
That's a great question, and it's never easy. There's not a great answer. I know one thing that I've learned is, and I'm not, my girls can tell you I'm not great about this, but I'm getting better, is putting my cell phone down and turning it off. The idea of being present, and then also just being interested in what they're interested in. So when I come home, I don't wait for them to come to me. If they're playing downstairs and they're playing with Legos or some other toy, I just jump in with them and what are we doing and what do we need to do, and that helps. But the other part is when they're ready, bringing them along in what you're doing. Don't be afraid of that either. I don't think you need to think of it as separate. Our kids, as much as you, here's what I found. We've read a lot of books on parenting and sat through classes, and there's a lot of, this is like the books thing, there's a lot of great ways to do it. But in the end, our kids learn more from who we are than anything methodology that we teach. And so Lauren and I keep talking about, okay, we have to keep trying to become the people that we want to become. And that's what our kids are going to see and remember and know is true. And then, how can we be together? When you think about those rhythms, if you know there's a stretch where you're gone for a while, try and find a stretch where you can be around more and not be preoccupied. And that's been the biggest thing for me, is if I can make sure I put my phone down, I've gotten the things done I need to get done, and then being present with my kids. And just, if you can be around for the moments that they want to talk rather than trying, I wish I could work on my schedule where I was like, hey, Emma, 8:15, we're going to have this talk. And it don't work that way. It's laying in bed at the right time when she's got the question that pops into her head at that time, and it can lead to a great conversation. So, but if you can let love guide you, you'll be okay in the end.
Christina had mentioned it's New Year's resolutions. For me, I like to go with a word for 2019. Do you have a word or phrase that resonates with you for 2019?
Yeah, the word I've been using, and you've heard me say it 100 times here, so this shouldn't be surprising, really is rhythm. The last 2 years, when I look at my life, I've gotten out of rhythm. We had a baby 2.5 years ago that everybody knows that kind of throws your rhythm off a little bit. We're 5 for 5 in them throwing off our rhythm. You don't figure it out. And then we went into some massive changes. There's 2 of our senior leadership positions turned over. We bought 16 restaurants. We launched a new concept. We launched a new IT project with High Touch. And we survived it, but we don't want to survive life. And so what Lauren and I are talking a lot about this year is rhythm. What's that look like? And how do we make it really healthy for our family and for ourselves?
Let's give John one more round of applause. Now, John, I know I speak on behalf of this entire crowd, but thank you so much for what you do for your company, for your community, and most importantly for your family. Family was very important to you, and it came out today, and you see it in your daily life too by having the people here support you. So, on behalf of everybody, thank you so much for what you do. And we actually have a gift for you. This is from Lacey Leatherman from Heartland Heritage. It's a local entrepreneur, so a couple hats and a couple koozies in there.
Thank you very much.
Let's give him a round of applause.
And let me just say this, I really, there's a lot of you in the room, I didn't call you all out by name, but there's many of you that inspire me on a daily basis, that keep me going. And again, I just want to finish with what I started. None of this do we do alone. And we learn from each other, and everybody, there's a treasure in every person you meet. And I just encourage you, what we talk about is going on treasure hunts. And just trying to learn from the people we're around. And so I just want to thank the people that have been interested enough in me to help me grow and learn over time, and the people that walk alongside in the journey now. It's a true pleasure, and thank you guys all for coming here tonight, and thank you for what you do for Wichita. Good times ahead if we can stick together.